Welcome to Medical Confessions.
Your remedy for serious medicine. I'm Jen.
I'm April.
And I'm Scott. Today we're going to be talking about the medical benefits of honey. So that's very exciting.
Yes. Actually, I think it's kind of a big thing right now. Everyone's looking for natural remedies. And I know there's all kinds of things. I'm going to go back to Pinterest again, but honey and cinnamon and raw honey and all that kind of stuff. They're supposed to be it's supposed to be this miracle thing.
Yeah.
And
it's not medicinal? Tide Pods.
I know. I still don't get that. I don't understand how. Well, I don't know. I guess maybe it's a challenge, right? They put it in.
Did you watch the videos?
No, because I really respect Tide. And it's my thing. Fixes my clothes, makes them clean. So I'm not going to watch them deface
I
the
saw
pod.
this thing that was do we realize that the generation that's eating soap right now is going to be in charge of Congress here pretty soon?
Yeah, I don't know. But I guess maybe we should be happy because it's not electronic and they're entertaining themselves. The kids are quiet in the laundry room.
Forget the burns and the death that ensues.
Oh, yeah, that's something else.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be something else.
Yeah, so don't use Tide Pods topically.
Yes.
This is what we've learned here today.
Yeah. I don't want to know what's in them because no other detergent gets my clothes that clean. So I'm just going to be oblivious.
Well, I have seen...
I won't let my kids eat ramen noodles, but I will wash their clothes in Tide Pods. I know.
I don't know where to go from there.
Yeah.
All right.
So honey, that's exciting.
We digressed.
Pure honey.
Pure honey.
That's what we're talking
or
about,
Medi
pure
honey.
honey. Or Medi honey. There is something called Medi honey, yeah.
Well, start out and just, what's the difference between just buying stuff off the shelf at the store and then pure honey?
Well,
this is pure honey, but it looks pretty shade.
Yeah. I don't know. Is it raw honey?
No, it's not raw, but it's pure.
It's a product of Brazil, so... U.S. and Brazil. How does that work? Did they take some of the honey from USA and some from Brazil?
The stickers from the U.S.
Oh.
Just slap that sticker on, and then they can claim it's from the U.S.
Yeah. No, raw honey is what we're looking for. Straight out of the hive kind of honey.
Yeah.
Anything you buy in the store generally is going to be diluted a little bit, and it will take away a lot of the antimicrobial properties of honey.
But maybe organic store or some sort of a homeopathic...
Yeah, if they use pure raw honey, then, that's the stuff you want, not the watered-down version.
So are we looking for that term, pure raw honey?
Raw honey is what you're looking for, that term. Pure, I don't know. I mean, what define pure? I don't know. But raw, for sure.
April's not pure.
No. That card flew out the window a long time ago.
I saw a white dress at her wedding. I don't know what you're talking about.
So, with that said, if it's not raw, then it's just diluted down honey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the dilution actually will get rid of a lot of the antimicrobial properties. It'll leave one left, but there's 4 of them. On a chemical level, that's actually very, very detrimental to bacteria and fungus and things like that.
So is there any downside to using raw honey? Is there anything dangerous? So we talk about people, they don't pasteurize milk, so just straight from the cow. Oh, it's dangerous, all of that. Is there anything like that with raw honey?
Actually, no, not really. The only drawback would be is if you took it to the extreme and you had a full body burn that's full thickness into your muscles, and then you just lathered yourself in honey. The osmotic pressure that's going to pull water out of your body into the honey at that point would actually dehydrate you fairly quickly, and burns in general dehydrate you. So you'd have a dehydration problem. But I don't know anybody who's getting blown up by a bomb and then jumping into a swimming pool of honey, so it's probably not a bad, something we should really worry about. But other than that, there really isn't any drawbacks to honey. I mean, it's been going back since 350 BC. Aristotle was the first one to say, hey, let's start using this for quite a few things because it seems to be working. They didn't have the chemistry that we have today to show why it's working, but he just anecdotally said it seems to work, so let's use it. And it does. It's very exciting.
So what types of things, then, if people are going to use it? Now, I've heard that just ingesting it and I don't know what the term is, but some sort of an organic cinnamon, like just taking a spoonful of raw honey and cinnamon.
Cinnamon?
Yeah. And yeah, there was a little blurb about cinnamon on there, but I'm not sure exactly
what
what
Is it a Pinterest blurb or a Gwyneth Paltrow blurb?
It's not Gwyneth Paltrow. It's not goopy.
What did they say that would do?
What, the cinnamon?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Or just eating that.
like
Concoction.
just well, it's supposed to aid with digestion. It's supposed to
Gotcha.
ward off colds. Like it had this kind of like oil pulling, like the magical world of honey, and I believed it. So I did it for like a week.
Well, and they're not honestly
did.
at the
Did it
chemistry
help?
level.
Your
I
digestion?
don't know. It was the same. I don't know.
You,
I just bored of the habit and moved it back to my
I'm
straight
tired of honey. Go with sugar.
It's too much work.
No, they're not wrong on the, there's a lot of, antibacterial, antifungal properties to honey. So anything that can be caused by a bacteria or a fungus theoretically could be helped. But there's a lot of theories out there. You got to prove them with a study. The studies of the Cochrane folks did a review on them, and they found that I think their term was there is a robust evidence that honey is
Robust.
robust.
That's a good name or
Yeah.
a good term. I like
They
that.
went serious because that is a pretty that's pretty much saying this really works.
Right.
For partial thickness burns and healing times, it was better than silver sulfadiazine, better than betadine, some saline gauze that they used. Hydrogel is another one that some docs use, and honey outperformed them all for partial thickness burns for healing time.
Wow. That's impressive.
They did say that though post-operative wounds, there wasn't much evidence that it reduced healing times, but there you kind of think, okay, well, in the
They were
operating room,
sanitized
it's
and-
pretty
yeah.
sanitized. There's not a lot of bacteria anyway, so maybe that was part of it.
Yeah,
I don't
you're
know.
starting from a clean palate that way.
Yeah.
So
But the study said it wasn't that much better in that case. But partial thickness burns, boy,
that's the way to go.
that's-
Speaking of partial thickness burns,
Well, you guys
Yeah,
will.
what happened?
Well, what happened was this morning I ended up in my kitchen with my pants down, holding my arm underwater.
which in itself isn't that random for people.
Yeah. The pants down part or the holding the hand of the water
All
part?
of it. I boiled myself some water for some tea this morning, and I went and sat down, and as I was stirring, a little blurp of the water got on my hand. I was like, ow! And then it splashed on my leg, and it was ouch! And then I just cover, like,
Oh,
my
yeah.
Oh,
whole...
it actually blistered.
Oh yeah, I'm
Did you-
losing some skin.
Did you put honey on it?
I did. And
Did you have
Probably
raw
stung,
honey?
didn't it?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Because my
Did it
my
sting?
son, yes,
I've
Oh,
heard
it does. It
stings.
stings. I
Stings
didn't
a
know
little
that.
bit. That's one of the
Yeah,
only
it-
minor complications.
definitely didn't feel like it was helping at all. But my natural instinct was go to the water. But then I remembered we're filming today for this honey
Sacrifice
episode.
my health.
Let's put some honey on it
So
then.
I
We're
did.
here.
This
I
is a
put honey
raw
on it.
Oh, this one. Yeah,
This-
this one's not raw.
yeah.
Yeah, never mind.
I don't care about my family. I buy it.
Buy the cheap stuff from
The stinging has gone away now, but at the time, it was not cooled, and I slathered honey, and I waited, and I had to put it under warm water to get the honey off, so I could then cool it with cold water.
I feel like as a reference, we should take a picture of this, and then you should continue to put honey on it over the next week, and let's see how, we can use it
Yeah.
in contrast. Maybe one of my numerous burns
Yeah.
here, and what happens when you don't put honey on them.
Well, yours
Perfect.
was lime juice, wasn't it?
Well, this one was, and this one was cooking.
We should do a lime juice episode for that. One's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I feel
Well, this is a different story, but I tell you, I recently talked to my aunt, and she was mentioning something about beer, and she's like, and I'd love to put lime juice, but I can't. And I was like, what? She's like, oh, I'm allergic to it. Burns my skin. And I'm like, why did no one tell me this? Like, it's genetic, clearly. I got this from you. And she's like, oh, sorry. Yeah, one time I burned my whole... And I was like, oh,
And
thanks for
isn't
the
it an
warning.
Irish thing? It's an Eastern European thing, right? Not a Mexican thing?
Well, I've heard that when I went to the dermatologist, they actually asked if I was Hispanic.
Oh, so it is.
Yeah, she
Mexican,
asked if I
not
was
Irish,
Hispanic,
okay.
and I'm like, yeah, and she said a certain percentage of, and it's higher population in there. But she also had to go pull out like an old school dictionary to figure out why I burned. So,
Oh, weird.
yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty rare.
Ah.
I've never heard of it before.
yeah. Well, now I know.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I think we should put this on April's burn,
Yeah.
take pictures, and we can use it as a reference to see
Perfect.
if it actually works.
Teenagers can handle the stinging of Tide Pods for quite a while, so maybe you can handle the stinging of the honey. For,
Yeah, I think I can handle it now that it's done. It's been cooled.
Did you have injuries on your leg too? Because you mentioned
yeah, I did.
Yeah.
You're just burned all over the
Oh,
place.
well, it's like that, like years ago when the person spilled coffee on them in the drive-thru. I guess it's real. Like,
Oh my god,
It
it was
hurts.
awful.
Yeah.
Like I was jumping all over the place.
so it makes me wonder too. You know, you have that initial, the liquid cools down. You remove it from. What about these people that have these really horrible exposures and really significant burns? You know, like I couldn't imagine I guess at some point it stops hurting.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, once
Oh,
you,
right.
We should
So-
probably talk about what burns.
I was
are.
just going to say, well, that, and we mentioned several times partial burns. So what are the differences?
Well,
What's the difference?
and I actually, sorry, just to back up a little, after the honey, I also read in Farmer's Almanac that if you mix honey and milk,
you and Farmer's Almanac.
I was trying all sorts of things.
So, but does the milk
Besides
have to
water.
be raw milk?
No, well, I used 2%, and
That has nothing to do with raw.
only,
That's
well, it was
just-
raw honey and milk. They didn't say raw milk. It just
Like
said,
straight out of the cow.
it just said it had to be, it was because the proteins in the milk help
okay.
with the
Are you buying it,
cooling,
Scott?
healing.
I
I'm
would
not.
disagree with that. No.
Yeah, I don't buy it.
The milk, no.
It
I don't
helped
think so.
when I poured it over because it was cooling, but it took me forever to mix the milk and honey because it was cold. So I was sitting there in agony concocting this thing. Then I poured it over and it did. It felt better, but cold water
And
felt good too.
the Farmer's Almanac's like April's Bible. She doesn't own farm animals or have a farm at this point in her life.
they have,
But
they have fun riddles.
that interchanges
Yeah.
that she uses.
Yeah.
That. So burns. Let's get back.
Burns.
Talk
Okay,
about
yeah,
burns.
sorry,
Burns. 3 types. Some people say 4. First type would be first-degree burns. Everybody knows that's kind of like a sunburn, just reddening of the skin. Nothing pretty much hits that first layer of skin, your epidermis. Second type is going to be, down into your dermis. You're going to get blisters with it.
Second degree for
This would be a second-degree burn. So that's a little bit deeper into the dermis. Once you get into the muscle tissue, that's the full thickness burn. First and second degree is then your partial thickness. Technically, then third degree would be full thickness. That's into the muscle tissues themselves. And that's where you probably want to stop using honey because I think the studies have never gone with the full thickness burns. At least
Right.
that I've read, they're all partial thickness with the blisters that have popped and things like that. And then there's that fourth type that they say where your bones get burnt. But that one's kind of, some people adhere to it, some people don't, because if your bones are burning, are you still alive? Probably
Yeah.
not. Who cares?
Yeah.
You're just, barbecue at that point,
Right. Ugh.
So that's unfortunate. And
So
the coo-
full thickness then is kind of the point when, I don't want to say it stops being painful because even April's burn actually displays 2 different types of burns. She's got a second degree and maybe surrounding areas are first degree. So is it fair to say that a full thickness is, not painless, but you kind of...
Well, yeah, that's going to be your nerve endings. There's no, nerves, dendrites in there, and there's muscle tissue to hurt. So if you burn all the way through, it won't be painful. But like you said, if you get a burn on your forearm, where you might have a third degree in the center, then some second degree around it, and first degree around it, so it's still going to be painful. But right in the third full thickness section, it won't be painful. So if you're a full body burn, you're probably not painful. There's a great video of a guy who blew himself up in town one time, and the entire car blew up, and he stood up and started walking around like this, full body, third degree burns. He
And he
lived
had
for
no
a couple
idea?
hours, yeah. Well, he knew that he blew himself up.
Yeah, but I mean pain-wise, it wasn't like he
I
was...
would imagine it was painful because he was kind of walking
Yeah.
like this, but,
Oh my gosh.
maybe it wasn't in pain.
That's horrible.
He made it a couple hours, I think.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. So yeah, honey. What's helping us
On that
out?
bright note,
Jeez, what a
yeah.
downer.
Talk to us about what honey itself is. What's in it that does the trick?
So honey in general, depending on the type, because depending on the type of flora that the bee uses to make the honey, it'll have different properties. But for the most part, it's about 84-85% fructose and glucose. The other
That's why it's so good.
that's why it's tasty. The other 15%-ish by volume is going to be water. And that's all that's pretty much in it. What makes honey and its properties so antibacterial is the fact that water actually binds to the glucose molecule exceedingly strongly. So the first thing that honey is doing for you with burns is its awe, and that's the availability of water or free water. All living things need water to survive. Bacteria do as well. So in honey, the awe value is 5.6 to 6.2-ish, depending on the type of honey. Well, bacteria need about double the amount of free water than that, about 9.6 to 9.9 to be able to survive at all. So there's just not enough water available for the bacteria to survive. So you slather that stuff on there, well, the bacteria can't survive, whatever bacteria is there. So it's the free water. The second thing that it is it's pretty acidic. You said it burned quite a bit, and that is, when they do topical honey for burns, that's the number one complaint, is that little minor burning that you get.
Minor. Did you see how he threw that in there? Like just a dig at April's pain tolerance. The minor burning that Nat wouldn't even complain about.
God, a second grader would have been okay with it.
That actually surprises me, because there's just something very soothing about honey. You think about ingesting it with a sore throat or something like that. It just surprises me that it actually burns, or that
it's that acidic.
Yeah.
I was surprised too. It's 5.6 to 3.4 to 4.5 on the pH scale.
Yeah.
So pretty acidic. 7 being neutral. Our bodies are like 7.3.5.
Yeah. The nice thing though is I'm one of those people, like, if it doesn't burn, then you feel like it's not working. Yeah, and it's even like
pain.
Well, and like even like cleaning products, like if I can't smell like the bleachy Tide Pod-ish goodness of it, then I don't feel like it's doing a good job. So I'm not one of these people that uses like vinegar and water. Like I want that bleachy.
Oh, yeah.
I
clean
need my
Well, and I don't know how much it was burning me versus. I mean,
Just the
I
pain.
went right into the kitchen and poured.
Like I'm going to use this opportunity, because we actually talked about that. We talked about what can we use to stake some claimer, make some
I was
good
still in the
example.
initial stages of shock.
God had a
But
plan
you went right
today.
for the honey. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's dedication.
Well, it's
Yeah.
better than, because I think we had talked about somebody taking a curling iron, burning
That's what I'm
ourselves in
saying.
front
Is
of
we
people.
talked, and I kind of offered, like, I always burn, so I'll do it. But I like that it happened organically. That's cool.
I like that it's you guys volunteering for all the hard stuff. It's
Oh, don't worry,
fantastic.
your day is coming.
I don't think I volunteered for this. It was
Yeah.
not a pleasant
Your
morning.
day is coming, Scott. We've got some projects for you to do.
Well, yeah. So the acid level, it's super acidic. Bacteria need 4 to 4.5 range on the pH scale to survive, and that's only some bacteria can survive at those low pHs. So it's kind of right on that level where some might survive from the acidity, some might not. But the ones that do don't have enough water anyway. The other thing that it's doing for you, bees, when they secrete the honey, their hyperpharyngeal gland secretes what's called glucose.
Go ahead.
It's just so.
Glucose oxidase, and that particular molecule, if it comes into contact with more oxygen, then it'll actually break down into gluconazole and hydrogen peroxide. And so low levels of hydrogen peroxide, everyone known for a long time that's pretty antibacterial. How that works is all living things all living cells produce catalase. Catalase will actually turn hydrogen peroxide into water and oxygen. Oxygen is a pretty potent free radical. We need it to survive, but it's also detrimental to cells at certain percentages. So it'll actually interrupt cellular processes at just that amount of oxygen, and it will kill the bacterial cell. Unfortunately, you probably shouldn't use hydrogen peroxide on your wound in general, because it'll also kill the good cells too. So your healthy living cells, it's gonna, it'll kill the bacteria and.
Would it be
stuff.
reasonable though? Because most people apply it initially, so initial and then not follow up. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying probably shouldn't use it at all.
Oh.
Most docs say.
I like it when it bubbles.
Well, and that's the problem, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's releasing oxygen, which is a bad thing. You can get air embolus with that. There's been a few people who've had strokes and
How
heart
are we
attacks.
still alive?
Well,
That's my parents' go-to.
I know. My mom's like penicillin pills from Mexico and like corn hydrogen. Thanks, Mom.
Well, let's be honest. Most people put it on like capillary bleeding. So what size air embolus are you going to get into a capillary bed? Not very big. But if you do happen to get arterial or venous bleeding and you get a big air embolus in there, there has been people who've had strokes and heart attacks from it. So they kind of recommend against it just for that, because there is things like Neosporin and honey, apparently.
Nice.
And the low levels of hydrogen peroxide that the honey's going to release aren't going to be as bad as that pure bubbly
Right.
hydrogen peroxide anyway.
And I knew this hydrogen peroxide warning from you before, and my friend's son, his senior year, after graduation, he fell into a fire at a party, and he
Did
told
they
us
put that on burns?
he said,
Ouch.
Oh my
I felt like he was
gosh.
in the coals, his whole arm, like he had to go get some treatment
Skin
done
grafts,
for
or
it.
yeah.
And he's like, all I could think of, I just grabbed some hydrogen peroxide
Oh.
and dumped it on.
Oh.
Jeez.
Oh no! So
Been better off with like butter.
oh, he said it hurt so bad.
Oh, I couldn't even imagine.
No.
Poor kid.
Yeah, she's like, well, I hope you learned something
Yeah.
from this.
Lesson learned, Mom. Fall in the fire.
Ugh.
So, would you say that it's reasonable then? I mean, everyone's got their medicine cabinet or, their on-hand Tylenol and stuff. Would it be reasonable for people to have that jar of raw honey that's dedicated to just these types of things?
Well, I
Isn't
will
that-
start off by saying we're not doctors.
Yes.
We're not telling you what to do at all. You do whatever you want to. We're just presenting information. But in that presenting, I kind of think that it would work.
Yeah.
I mean, the Cochrane reviews say it does. The studies say it works better than some of the other stuff. As long as
Right.
it's partial thickness burns, it helps with a couple of different. I mean, all three types of fungus that we get. It helps with. So
Athlete's foot.
I was just going to say, like, yeah.
the Cochrane review I read didn't cover a study on athlete's foot, but it is very specific that the dermatophytes, which are the different types of fungus we get, it'll kill all three.
Well, and that's interesting because, my sons have had athlete's foot before, and so I'm wondering now we would put whatever Lotrimin or whatever cream and put socks on them at night. So would it not just be as useful to maybe a Ziploc bag and
Just put your toes in honey.
Yeah.
I'd be a little nervous over time just because of the acidity level, but
Oh.
at the same time, it works.
Maybe a
you
night
know?
or two.
I mean, there's burn centers in Germany using it on topical, so clearly that acidity level is not that big of a
I'm gonna have
deal.
to try it next time someone pops up with
Athlete's
athlete's
foot.
foot.
Lather some honey on it.
Well, and the shelf
Well-
life is good on honey, right? So if you were to be at a farmer's market or whatever and bought this raw honey and you know that it's raw,
Also, fun quiz. How long would honey sealed in a jar last, do you think?
a long time. I feel like a long
Thousands
time.
of years.
Although I've had honey like get all crystally.
Mhm.
Is that because it's not raw?
It's exposed to air, yeah, so the
Okay.
water's slowly coming off of there. But, fun fact, if you seal honey in a jar, it will last for billions of years.
That's
They say
crazy.
it'll be one of the last few things to survive of the human race on the planet. if you
Everyone's
had
dead,
it.
but there's jars of honey everywhere.
That is the theory. So but
So-
because
Honey and Twinkies.
And
you're
Twinkies
set
were good.
for billions of years.
well, and one of the good things about honey, I mean, we're using antibiotics for things. Staphylococcus bacteria. That's the main bacteria that's hurting a lot of people. And we've heard of MRSA, right?
Yeah.
That's methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, and there's lots of bacteria, or there's lots of bacteria that's resistant to that. Honey kills MRSA. Honey, there's been no evidence that bacteria mutate in the presence of honey, and there's been no allergic reactions to honey like you do with good antibiotics. So,
that's interesting.
I mean, there's another pointer for honey.
So is this our conspiracy theory? Is it honey and pot that the U.S. government doesn't want everyone to start using because it would annihilate our drug?
That's a good question. I mean, Germany's using it. There's different. Now, obviously, you got to be careful with the type of honey because,
Sure.
I mean, bees can pollinate rhododendron trees, and that's actually pretty bad for you.
Oh.
Manuka honey is the one that is the best at killing the most types of microbes.
So hold up, go back. If I'm starting a beehive and I have rhododendrons on my property, is that a bad thing? Am I not going to want to ingest this honey?
I don't want to say one way or the other because I haven't read the study that
Yeah.
actually mentioned that, but I remember reading it saying that be careful with it
Oh.
because rhododendrons in
Or
general.
don't.
Let's just see what happens. Here, Dave. Let's see what
That's
happens.
really interesting. I haven't studied enough about the beehive yet to
Yeah.
understand it, but I need to. My hopes are to start this spring, so
Yeah, and I'm not
just gonna
two
be
for
out there
sure on the
chopping down our
rhododendrons. I
roadies.
just know there was a warning about rhododendron trees for some reason.
Huh.
But the manuka tree is the one that it makes the best type of honey for killing microbes. The fourth way, I mean, we've talked about three. The fourth way that honey helps is it's actually been shown there's some antibodies, specifically B and T cells. Honey will start the activation of those, so it'll help with the immune system. It also there's a class of molecules that stimulate your immune system called cytokines, and it'll actually produce those, and specifically the tumor necrosis factor A and interleukins 1 and 6. It will help with, and that will stimulate your immune system to fight off whatever is there too. So that's the last way honey helps. So there's 4 fantastic ways that honey has been shown to help. It's very exciting.
Very wrapping it all up. I was just thinking while you were talking about all the stuff I didn't care about. I was just wondering, like, what it's like for your kids. Like, you know how kids never want to ask their parents, like, can I stay the night at a friend's house? Or, like, are your kids, like, at home, like, you go ask Dad for money. No, you do it. Dad, can I have $20? Well, son, do you know the history of the $20 bill? Let me talk to you about the president. You know, like, do they just, like, zone out and be like...
So, funny story, they do preface a lot of their questions with, Dad, I want the short answer on this one.
I know, and I'm figuring
Dad, I
out
want
that
the
need
long
to start
answer on
doing
this
that,
one.
'cause I'm kind of just like, shut up, Scott.
It's not a good trait. That
I appreciate your knowledge, but
well, anyways, yeah, they do preface it with, Dad, give me the short answer, not the long one.
So then you know.
They've let me know.
Yeah.
Shut up, Dad. Stop talking, Dad.
It's their respectful way.
I get it.
Yeah. All right, already. Get it.
But that's what we're trying to. I mean, that's what we're trying to.
Oh no, I
across,
agree,
right?
and it is interesting, but a lot of it's over my head. Not because you're explaining it poorly, but because I just get caught up in the words, and it's entertaining to me because this is how you
everybody
are in
knows
real
the
life.
concepts.
No,
They
I
just
think it's
don't know
because
the-
it's not just because you're doing the show and you're this way for the show. You're this way all the time. Like,
Damn it.
yeah, all the
Darn
time.
it.
But it's good. It's fun.
All right.
You
Is it?
entertain us.
Is it?
You're good
It
natured
doesn't
enough.
sound like it.
Well, I feel like this is what a lot of our stuff that we do on this show disproves, maybe, trends or things that are going on. I feel like this is one of the few that we've said, no, this actually is proven. Because there are funny things, especially with our reference to burns. People use egg whites or grandma used butter or all these crazy things that I actually was assuming there'd be some fault or some non-truth to it. But it actually seems like of all the things that I pulled off Pinterest, maybe this is the one I shouldn't have quit.
Well, it's so funny. So the only reason that I know so much about it was just that. I think you guys both know my parents are missionaries in Africa, and they came back one year and was like, "Oh, have you tried honey in your profession?" And I'm like, "No." And I think
Come on!
Well, I think
Which doctor told you this? Mom
I
and Dad?
actually said so. I was like, Dad, I don't know about that voodoo medicine that you've got going on
Yeah.
over there. I don't think
Shamans
that's.
are great, but
Yeah, no. And then I looked it up, and I'm like, crap.
That
I'm
was
gonna have to
right.
go tell him he's right. Dang it.
did you ever tell him he was right?
I did, and he still brings that up all the time. Well, remember about the honey?
Did you ever tell him about the tape measure?
No. And actually, I was just talking to him this morning, and he was like, "Oh yeah, and we watched a couple."
Don't watch
Episodes,
6,
and
Dad.
I'm like-
Don't watch 6.
Yeah, don't watch that one. So I don't think he's gotten to that one yet because he didn't bring it up. My brothers did though.
Oh, I'm
For
sure.
sure.
I'm sure.
Was that the same tape measure that we? No.
Different
Was
one.
a different one, I
Totally
swear.
different one. The funny thing to me about that is the danger of, using a tape measure and the
Well,
way
the
that you
tape
apply
measure
it.
has the thing that you
Yeah,
can lock
but you
it
never
in place.
know. You get an old rusty one and those things snap back. Like,
All of a sudden, they need a tetanus shot. Where did you get
where's
cut?
the injury at?
When was your last tetanus shot?
Small injury, I see.
We're gonna have to stick the shot right next to the injury.
Oh, it's very
No.
important that our viewers watch our videos in order and
Yeah.
understand some of our references. So
This would be the penis size
I think
episode.
it's episode 6.
6?
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
believe.
That would be the one we're referencing.
All right, back
Back to the-
task, guys.
What are we
So
talking
your
about?
mom and dad then brought this back, and they suggested it. How many years ago was that?
This was probably 10 years ago now.
Oh wow! So they were way ahead of the game.
They were, and they've sworn by some of the docs over there. I mean, they don't have access to a lot of modern medicine, so they are having to come up with a lot of home remedies for
Right.
things.
And they've probably been using it for.
And he said that any of the burns, they will just lather the gauze in honey and just wrap it with gauze and
That's
honey.
interesting.
And they said it works pretty well, and clearly studies are saying it does. So
Is that after they cool it? Because I didn't want
Things are a little too fresh for
anything.
April.
I
Little too
didn't want
fresh.
anything touching
Yeah.
my burn at all, except the
yeah.
cold water.
well, and the cooling is really what you want. You want to stop the burning process sooner rather than later, because you're still getting burnt until you cool it off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
So, and if it's just your room temperature honey, I'm sure that was between the acidity and the still burning. You're like, what is this
It's
voodoo
not
medicine he's
working."
talking about?
Scott's an idiot.
Yeah. I'm like, great. Warm water to get the honey
So
out.
that is good to note. We immediately take care of the burn,
Cool it
cool it
first.
down,
Cool it
with
off
cool
first,
water,
yeah.
and then
Well,
apply
so
the
we should
honey.
talk about that in general, because, I mean, people will probably just start going straight to the honey. You probably shouldn't.
Yeah,
I mean, so step one, cool the area. Unless it's bigger than like the palm of your hand, then you want to be careful, because hypothermia is a big deal with burns. You get rid of that top layer and your heat's...
see, I don't think I knew it was that small. I mean, I know that, but I didn't think it was that small. I thought it was a bigger percentage of the
I'm
body.
saying that because
Yeah,
that's
I
like
do
even
too.
third degree burns. I
Yeah.
mean, there is a percentage, like for in our profession, it's 20%
Right.
of third degree,
Yeah.
50%
Well, and it
is
depends on how big your hands are, apparently.
yeah. Geez. Marfan's folks out there. I mean, gosh, their whole body's burnt before they
That's right.
get.
We mean no disrespect to
No.
anybody that's afflicted with Marfan's. Scott.
I don't mean any disrespect whatsoever. But yeah, so there is a percentage. I'm just giving a general, you
Yeah.
probably shouldn't. And then the cooling thing is also the same thing. Hypothermia is a big deal. And then the dehydration thing's a huge deal. You burn into that muscle tissue, and you are getting a lot of fluids coming out, and you'll get dehydrated pretty quickly.
Right.
The treatment for that, for a significant burn, we're giving liters of fluid to people before they even get to the hospital.
Gotcha.
And even at the hospital in the first 24 hours, they can get 8, 10, even
Wow.
12 liters of fluid just to maintain hydration.
Right.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So be careful about the cooling. Be careful about the, dehydrating yourself. And then obviously call 911. They have pain meds, for
Yeah.
God's sakes.
They're pretty good about that.
Yeah. Pain medicine's awesome.
I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder what they would have thought if you would have called for
Oh,
that. though.
jeez.
Who is this lady? God, just put some honey on it, for God's sake.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Well, good. Well, that makes me happy that,
Pinterest was right.
yeah.
Between those and pallets, they are taking over the world.
Yeah, I need some honey. I've got a cough.
Well, no, it is good. They've been studying for like gastroenteritis, peptic ulcers,
Oh,
all sorts of things because of those,
properties.
antibacterial and fungal properties.
So even mixed in with stomach acid, it's still
They're studying it for that. I haven't read one that said it's better.
Right.
It's just they're looking at it because, like we said, anything that has to do with a problem from bacteria or fungus, they're going to probably want to
Address
look
it
at
with
that. I just haven't seen the results.
oh, good.
But the results are back on the partial thickness burns. It is fantastic.
Sweet. So I guess our conclusion today is honey, raw honey,
Mm-hmm.
does have multiple healing properties and is a good homeopathic remedy.
It seems like it. But obviously, contact your doctor first, because we're not doctors. We don't know what the hell we're talking about.
Clearly. So,
Oh.
well, good. Well, if you like what you saw today, please check us out on our website.
Medicalconfessions.com.